Way back into the distant past, when Pete was like 15, he joined a mail-in movie club, 11 days for pennies. And now cut to 2025, the movie club caught on to Pete's life, and now they want to punish him, so they trapped him in a room with a bunch of movie tapes. Pete didn't want to pay for the movies he got in the 90s. He'll have to watch random horror tapes and tell us about gore and probably some rape. Now keep in mind, Pete didn't pick. They use random numbers and a long list. He's got to get through every movie, one each day for the time we can foresee. Helpful Snowman roll call. Anxiety. Grouchiness, entropy, snow. If you're wondering why he did this song and other FAQ facts, just shut up and listen to this show, or fuck it, take a nice nap. It's Helpful Snowman Podoween 2025.
Well, hey everybody. Once again, I've been allowed some yard time. It's funny that they call it a yard in a dungeon or a prison or whatever. They're like, go out to the yard. It's like, feels very Andy Griffith or something. You know, like, yard time. Oh, this is a yard full of hardened criminals. But, you know, is a yard about who's in it or about what it is? I'm sure the people who make those little wooden signs that hang up at, you get at Hobby Lobby or whatever. I bet there's a sign that says, something to the effect of like, a yard is about the people in it, not the whatever. But by that same token, then a yard could be unmade by the people in it being, horrible murderers. Maybe most people who are on yard time, let's just assume they were wrongly convicted or, disproportionately punished, like me. Things in the dungeon are going fine. I'm not the only person in the dungeon, but I can't really interact with anyone else in the dungeon. They keep us pretty sequestered. They built it's a very old school dungeon, which is like stone walls and stuff. And they did give me a selection of colored chalks, though, to keep track of the days, which is nice. I thought I would have to, cut one of my fingers off and sharpen the bone into a little nubbin that I could use to scratch the, but no. The imprisonment has been so far much fairer than I expected, considering that the initial reasoning for it seemed very unfair. But I don't know, this is turning into like letters home from jail or something. But I don't even know who I would send these to. My wife is, not happy. But I would say, having spent 40 some years with me, myself, I think most people would be up for a break after a decade or so, which is, where we're at. So I can't blame her. I can't blame her for, I don't know. It would be nice if it was under better circumstances, right? If she was like, oh, I'm touring the world on a cruise ship and Pete couldn't come. I'm sure she'd prefer that to, well, he's just stuck in a dungeon watching terrible movies while I eat girl dinner. But by the way, I'm jogging out in the yard right now in case you couldn't tell or were concerned that I'm about to keel over from the amount of popcorn I've eaten over a lifetime. Which, is not small. If someone was like, it's mostly due to the popcorn you've eaten, as I'm like fading away, I'd probably be like, that's hard to argue with. I'm going to have a tough time being like, but it's not fair. Well, let's get to today's movie. Today's film is called Horror, or possibly #horror. It seems to be listed both ways online, probably because when you call your movie #horror, that probably messes with some internet movie database bullshit. But also, okay, before we talk about the movie, let's cover just the title. I'm highly suspicious that this is a title that they did because they were like, some marketing person had a not terrible idea in one sense, but a terrible idea in another sense, which is, hey, if we call this #horror, every time someone uses the #horror and then brings up, Instagram images with that, it'll bring up our stuff too. And whenever someone uses the title of our movie, it'll be hashtagged. So in a way, we've created a sort of, I don't know, what would you call that? Subversive marketing or something? But I think the thing is, number one, people just doing #horror on every other movie is going to completely bury the signal for this movie. But also, it would be interesting to me if you were on the marketing team for a shitty movie, because I'd be like, I'm not sure that people seeing this movie is to our benefit, marketing wise. This movie sucks. It's very bad. And so I don't know what the best way is to. It's almost like you want to trick. I think what you ideally have with a shitty movie, the best way to sort of get your money back on it, is to have a big opening weekend of some kind, either in the theater or streaming. Netflix is like, look what's coming, get excited. And basically, you try and shove as many people through the door as you can before they realize it's a piece of shit movie. That seems to me, that would be my preferred tactic for something like this. I think I would just want to go with, can we basically get people to watch this before there's enough evidence online that it's as shitty as it is. It's very shitty. But can we prevent people from finding out before it's too late? I think that's our best shot at getting anyone to watch this at all. I also guess I wonder, if you're marketing a shitty movie, though, is anyone willing to have that conversation? You know what I mean? Are people open to okay, maybe there's a coded Hollywood way to say it. This is a narrow demo movie or something like that, right? A way to say, nobody's going to see this. So how can we make it nobody +1? Because, is there a way to talk about a really shitty movie and say, listen, I don't know, this is not going to be a blockbuster. It's not going to be a sleeper hit. It's not going to be a cult hit. Maybe the best you can hope for really is like, maybe people will find it ironically funny and watch it that way. I don't know. But I don't know if you can even say that, you're in the room. I don't know if the marketer is like in the room with the filmmakers and is like, well, that was a piece of shit, so I will do the triage that I can. I mean, I don't know. Let's talk about the movie so you can understand why I'm talking about this. Oh, one other thing. I did identify, you can tell I was thinking about a lot of things other than the movie while watching the movie. Because I was thinking about, how would I market this movie? Having done work in marketing, I can tell you too, there's a tendency sometimes where you're like, do you know? I think you know. Sometimes I think the people know when they make a movie like #horror that they have a piece of shit on their hands. And but they think maybe the magic of marketing can save it. And I'm like, well, I think you need to lower your expectations. I think marketing can help something reach its intended audience. And that's when marketing works. I think that's what it does. Or reach the audience of people, maybe not an intended audience, but a receptive one. I don't really think marketing is going to be super successful at getting people to watch a movie that sucks by convincing them it doesn't suck. It's like, unfortunately, with so many things like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes out there, and not that those are the end-all be-all, but here's a pro tip for you guys. This is something I learned from Goodreads for books and comics. Something that has a low rating, that's not like a red flag for me. It's a yellow flag. But then you gotta read the text reviews and see if there's a pattern. Is there a reason most people are giving it a bad review? I'll give you an example. There's a book called The Last Girlfriend on Earth. And it's basically a bunch of short stories that are like comedy sketches. And one I remember is there's a Scared Straight program for kids. And they go in and it's scared straight, but not from crime, from dating. And it's like, the guy's like, you see this restaurant? You're going to have to eat out at a restaurant like this every other week. And then hands the kid the menu and is like, look at the fucking prices. That's for a fucking appetizer. And the kid's holding back tears. That's the kind of shit that's in there. And it's funny. And to me it's funny. And some of the negative reviews around it are it's misogynist or something. And it's just traditional gender roles and stuff. Women be all like this, men be all like that. And I'm like, I don't agree, but regardless, that stuff doesn't bother me as much as others. So for me, it's a green light. Or when I read a book or look at a book's reviews and it's got a low score, and then it's too gory for me, I'm usually it's probably not going to be a problem. So, someone's rating something low because it's too splattery. Hey, I'll probably be fine. So, I'm not someone who's like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are end-all be-alls, but I do think it's worth paying attention to, and like, it's a tool in the toolbox to help you decide whether to watch a movie. And when something is like a 2 on IMDb, you should be very cautious, right? I mean, when something's a 2.7 on Goodreads, and I read a lot of people complaining about gore, or in the case of The Last Girlfriend on Earth by Simon Rich, too funny. I have to, I move forward. But if it's like a 1, a 1.2, and I read it and it sucks, I'm like, I probably should have paid attention to that. So anyway, #horror. This is a movie about a bunch of 12-year-old girls who go to a slumber party and they bully each other. And then that's basically 80 of the 90 minutes. And then in the last 10 minutes, murders happen. So I've watched a few movies at this point, maybe the majority of what I've seen, that I'm not really sure why they thought it was a movie when they were making it. Like, it just doesn't seem to me, when I describe that to you, that's the movie. And there's a little twist, which I am going to spoil because you don't want to watch this. Okay. So, first of all, it starts with the based on a true story, which I was like, really? Because I don't recall a true story of girls who are bullying each other and then killed each other. There's also a sort of baffling social media component of the movie. The girls are constantly on their phones and posting to some kind of, vague movie invented platform that looks like, I don't know, Instagram crossed with a slot machine. Someone's understanding of what social media is, but they're like, I play Candy Crush. Is that social media? Is this I can do social? And then at some point, the girls just all lock their phones in a safe because why not? And that kind of eliminates that element from the movie. So here's the thing. I think here's why this movie doesn't work. First of all the girls are horrible. And not just like, I don't mean they're acting or whatever. I mean, there's not a single one that's remotely likable. They constantly argue and then eventually kick one of the girls out of the party because, I don't know, she supposedly crossed the line, even though the other kids have been saying equally, if not more, terrible stuff for the entirety of the movie so far. And I think the thing is, like, I don't know, when I describe it, it doesn't sound that bad, right? It's like, oh, this is a thing kids face and whatever. Oh, the true story that this is based on, because I looked it up, I was like, what is the true story? It turns out the writer-director asked a friend's kid, like, what's the scariest thing to you? And she said, cyberbullying. And then this lady was like, all right, that's a movie. I was like, well, that's a pretty, I've seen many a liberal application of based on a true story. I feel like the X-Files had some of that shit going on, and a lot of those kinds of shows from the 90s. But like, those ones you always said, okay, well, we have an episode with like the Fluke Man, and it says based on a true story, and it's like, well, one time they found quite a large worm clogging up a sewer pipe. The end, you know, and you're like, okay, well, it was based on it, but, you know, by that definition, isn't every story based on a true story? Like, does the kernel of any story's idea just come from nowhere? The only movie I've watched so far that I would say is not in any way based on a true story is The Toxic Retards, because it's not that I don't understand that could be based on a true story. It's more that I'm like, if that filmmaker insisted this was entirely made up in his mind, I would be like, I can see it. I can acknowledge that very likely possibility. So the girls are being very mean to each other, you know, and they all kind of take their turn in the barrel, but it's not realistic. It's very like blunt. They call the fat girl fat and say she eats too much. And there's a part where she goes and throws up. They call this other girl a lesbo, you know, and whether or not that's true, I don't know, but they keep saying it. And then like, another girl, you know, you get the idea, right? There's also a weird thing because there's like, I don't know, 6 girls, but 2 of them kind of occupy the same character space, which is girl who doesn't totally fit in with this group. One doesn't fit in because she's poor. And these kids are all very rich. And the movie takes place in this like very fancy house in the woods that is like owned by a family where the husband is like an art collector or dealer or something. And it's like all bullshit art. You know, it's a big picture of an egg or something. Or like a bunch of Halloween masks. But like shitty, not fun Halloween masks. So there's the poor girl. And there's the girl who's like unspecified behavior problems, I guess. Which I only mention because it plays into the twist. So unspecified behavior problems girl gets kicked out because I can't remember why, but the girls are constantly tearing each other down, but in such an obvious way. Like, they call the fat girl fat. They call the poor girl poor, you know, instead of more subtle ways. Like, you know, you have the poor girl come over and she's wearing like shabby clothes. We see her carefully pick out what she's going to wear. And then they instantly recognize that they're shabby. And, you know, but instead of saying like, oh, that's so shabby, the rich girl might be like, oh, here, you could wear my sweater. It's, you know, it's nicer. You know what I mean? In a more subtle way. Where it's like the kids are being mean, but maybe they don't even really realize they're being mean. Or maybe they do, but they think they're being subtle about it, at least. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, I don't want to rewrite movies all the time, but like this, here's the thing. Because this movie's 90% just a hang with unpleasant people you don't like, And because nothing horror really happens throughout almost the entire runtime, you got to give us something. I think the attempt was made in the visuals because they're in this house full of weird ass art. And so at least, it's not happening in the woods the whole time. There's significant portions in the woods because of course there are. But yeah, so like, I don't know. If you made that feel real, if the girls all arguing and cutting each other down felt more real, you could have something here, but it doesn't. So basically this just continues on for 80 minutes, and then someone starts killing all the girls, and it turns out it was behavior issues girl that they kicked out of the party, who I guess has like a sort of alter ego as Brandon or something. Early in the movie, her dad's like, I don't want you hanging out with Brandon. And then we find out that Brandon is like a murderous alter ego he's aware of, but that's how he's talking about it. And that whole thing is like very much a movie making gimmick where it's like, well, we'll have him refer to her murderous alter ego by first name so that we all think it's like a boy that she's hanging out with. But then it doesn't make sense because the dad shows up at the party after that girl left and he's like, where is she? Where is she? And the girls aren't answering really, and they're like, she left? And he's saying like, did she leave with Brandon? Was Brandon here? Which I'm like, okay, this makes no sense. Because the other girls don't know about her being Brandon. They just know her as Kate or whatever. And so like, him saying is Brandon here doesn't really... It doesn't explain to the girls what's happening. It's just done that way. It's scripted that way so that we, the viewer, don't know that Brandon is Kate. But also, it really doesn't matter that, Kate is this alter ego as well. It's, it doesn't matter that this is like a Fight Club or Identity situation where we have multiple figures collapsed into one, because having quote-unquote Brandon kill the girls has no effect on the movie that's different if Kate is doing it. Other than, I guess, to get to the end and the viewer's like, oh, okay, I guess that was, obscured from me. It's not like a mystery, because like, you, the viewer, just have no way to figure it out. It's sort of like if a movie was made and it turned out there was someone off screen the entire time, but in the movie, and it was like, everyone thinks this girl is crazy because she keeps saying there's a man in the room. And then the camera spins around. It's like, oh, there is a man in the room. It's like, okay. I mean, huzzah. What do we say to that? Huzzah. That's my answer, apparently. Two Orange is the New Black folks, Natasha Lyonne and Pennsatucky, make extremely brief cameos in the movie, which I found very funny because, Pensatucky's there because the mom of one of the girls is at an AA meeting, and she's like outside talking to someone on the phone, and Pennsatucky is there encouraging her or whatever, and then is like, okay, come on, let's go back inside. And I mean, she's on screen for maybe 30 seconds. And you're like, okay, this feels like maybe someone... It almost feels like this movie was made because they were like, I know 6 moms who are kind of like show moms and would like to get their kids into movies. So what's the most efficient way to accomplish that? Probably to make a movie that has 6 12-year-old girls at the center. And really it doesn't matter if it's a good movie. And maybe even if it's a shitty movie, it's like, well, now they've got their, I don't know, SAG card or whatever. However that shit works in that insane industry that we all know way more about than we should, because like the number of us who actually interact with it is like 0. But I guess the reach of that industry is very long. And so then it feels like, you throw a Pennsatucky in there because she's like, yeah, it hasn't really worked for a while. I need to keep up my insurance or whatever, so I need to do some work this year. And they're like, hey, come and stand outside of a church. I mean, we're not even talking a half day. We're talking about a literal 30-minute shoot. You don't even have to it's not even close. You wouldn't even know it was her if you didn't know her from anything. You wouldn't, if she was an unknown actress and they put her in that scene, you wouldn't be able to pick her out of a later movie. You wouldn't be like, that's that chick who was in that movie. You'd be like, all right, whatever. So, they both have very tiny, inconsequential parts, which I guess does make me think, I almost enjoy this movie more if it is basically a scam on the system as opposed to being a movie of trying to say something. It feels like it's trying to say something about like social media and stuff like that, which like, yeah, there's genuine issues with it, but sometimes things like this get made and I agree with the overall point they're trying to make, but it doesn't make it a good movie for me. Or I'll read a book or a comic or something that has things in it that I'm like, yeah, I mean, I agree with the politics of this or like the point it's making, but it's just not interesting or fun to watch. I'm going to also say part of what sucks about this movie, I think, is like, for me, it's more enjoyable to make fun of a shitty horror movie that has adults in it as opposed to 12-year-old girls, because I don't feel great about like saying that, the movie is terrible and whatever. And it's like, it's not their fault. You know what I mean? It's probably a good example of why 12-year-olds should not make a movie unsupervised. Cause it's like, well, I don't know. It's almost like maybe they should make a movie unsupervised because it would probably be, at least it'd be interesting. You know what I mean? At least I'd be like, that's a very odd choice of camera placement, or like, this is a really weird scene that doesn't go anywhere, but like, what were they trying to do? Whereas this is just like a whole lot of nothing. I mean, there's like multiple montages of them putting on matching outfits and stuff, which is super dumb because like, why? Why am I watching that? You know what I mean? And there's like, I don't know. It gives me a little bit of a creepy vibe feeling of just like, I'm watching this movie and it's just a bunch of 12-year-old girls the whole time on screen. And like, it doesn't feel, boy, I don't want this to turn into like what I saw, what I'm bringing to the table is what makes it weird. But like, I genuinely think it was filmed in a way that's pretty strange. A pretty odd way to film a 12-year-old girl at points. And I'm just going to leave it there. So yeah, overall, fucking terrible movie. Terrible movie. Kind of don't understand what it is. I hope it's just a scam. I watched a movie with Poonmaster Flex ages ago called Llamageddon. And it was basically a horror movie that happens at a farm while these teens are having a party, and there's like a llama that's an alien or something and shoots lasers or some shit. And it was very similar to this movie in that basically nothing happens until the last 10 minutes and then everyone gets killed. But here were the main differences. In Llamageddon, first of all, you kind of know what you're getting into. Like, from the title, from the the poster, you're like, this is not a serious movie. Like, this is not, no one is trying to say something real here. And like, I think part of what sucks about hashtag horror is like, these girls, it's like you're watching this movie and these 12-year-old girls are calling this one girl fat all the time and saying how fat she is and all this stuff. And I'm like, that is a real 12-year-old. You know what I mean? These are real 12-year-olds. And like, I think for adults, you know, you can opt in a little bit more and understand that like, I'm in a movie and like these girls don't think I'm fat or, you know, they're not whatever. That's got to be tough when you're 12 and you're like, well, we need to cast this girl as a fat girl who gets made fun of for being fat, you know, and like these different things. I don't know. It's not quite the same. But Lamageddon, you know, was basically seemed to me to be like they had a vague idea for a movie and they were like, let's just throw a big party and then, you know, it's like it was a movie that was sponsored by like, I don't know, Canadian Film Board or something. And I was like, I'm highly suspicious that this was, they came up with this movie idea and they did have like a short movie, but then they basically used most of the money to buy beer and have a party. And I'm like, I'm not mad about it. You know what I mean? And it did have like a weird llama puppet that killed a bunch of people. And probably the best part of Lamageddon was it had like a, you know, I don't know, 70-minute runtime. But the way they achieved that 70-minute runtime was by having like 10 or 15 minutes of credits over, you know, and in the lower corner while the credits roll, the entire movie plays again in like slightly faster speed. But literally the whole movie plays again in the lower corner. And I was like, I mean, I guess that's one way to, as the credits crawl by extremely slowly. And I was like, well, there's a trick. You know, I was like, Ed Wood, Roger Corman would be proud of this. They'd be like, these are some young go-getters to keep an eye on. And so like a movie like that that's just stupid is fine. Or like a movie with somebody like made by a Neil Breen it's more fun to like watch and laugh at and stuff because you're like, it's adults. And it's just not the same when it's kids. You know what I mean? It's not the same to mercilessly laugh at kids that way. Because, you know, like, I don't know, if a kid's a shitty actor or something, I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're fucking 12. How good are they going to be? You know, you get a Macaulay Culkin once in a generation, maybe twice with his brother. But, you know, you get a Culkin pair once a generation. And we still have ours. Ours are, thank God, still with us. And yeah, it's almost like I'm watching this movie living in fear of like, what are they going to make these kids do? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to watch them do anything. And like, I think there's a weird, again, there's like a weirdness to like a 12-year-old girl shooting another 12-year-old girl in the face with a pistol. You know what I mean? And you're like, you can do that in a movie like Beware Children at Play, the trauma movie, because you're like, it's a trauma movie, and that's like the whole point is that it's super over the top. Or you could do it in like an uber serious drama and depict it very realistically and be like, that's what violence, kid on kid violence is like. But this movie is like, you didn't earn it movie, and like it doesn't work. Nothing about this movie works. It's terrible. I kind of can't believe that it's like, and it's available on the library's movie service, Canopy, by the way, which I found shocking. I mean, I, of course, had to watch it on a crappy VHS tape because I'm in the Columbia House Movie Club dungeon, as we all remember. But like anyone, it's like almost being on there, I find like, so no one goes through these and is like, oh God, come on. Like, can't you just have a filter that's like, you know, I said before, IMDb isn't the end all be all, but like, couldn't we say 1 and below, 2 and below, something like that? Anyway, hashtag horror. The rating system for this probably needs to be based on social media. So I think if What would it take for me to like this movie on Facebook? If this movie was a person on Facebook, would I like it or would I cyberbully it? And the answer is somewhere in the middle, because I don't think I would like it because I didn't like it. But I'm also not a monster and wouldn't cyberbully a 12-year-old girl. And I don't like the choices I've created for myself here. And I probably like even less that I cannot really firmly say one or the other.
It's helpful snowman Podoween 2025.